Alright, from the top. Final Fantasy XIII 2, Lightning Returns...
No, that's not 13-2.
Okay, whatever.
13-2 is 13-2. Lightning Returns Final Fantasy XIII is Final Fantasy XIII-3, but not with Final Fantasy XIII-3 in the title.
Whatever. Second trailer, what I'm told is the second trailer, just went up today.
The first real full trailer.
I guess.
Right?
Right, and... Kaylin, talk to me here.
God, I don't even... My first initial reaction is like, Square Enix, you don't know what your overarching story for this trilogy of games is, do you? Like, I guess initially you weren't thinking that you were going to have 3 games in this series, I don't think. But then came this backlash of people who were like, hey, where's the story in the first game? And then you're like, oh, we better make up for that. So then you made 13-2, right? And then 13-2 is like, it forgot what 13 was. Like, it retconned the end of 13, and then just decided to do whatever it wanted. And now whatever this Lightning Returns thing is, okay, I don't know what it is. I know it's running around for some reason.
Uh-huh.
And you look like you're just limited to this little town, even though they say it's a metropolis. No, it's not. It's this little German village, okay? There's nobody in this town, as far as I can see. I don't know why it has a train, because I don't see a whole bunch of people that look like it would warrant having a train, a rail system, in this community, alright?
Well, if anything, that's the title of the first game, because there's a train that means nothing. Where's the train go? You're not going to see where it goes, because the train's only there so you can get off it. And stay where you are.
So then it's like... Then she's just saying... Lightning's just saying words for the sake of sounding like she knows what she's talking about.
Well, wasn't she doing that in the first game anyway?
Well, they all were. Really, it was more of Neil doing that in the first game.
Okay, so now it's just Lightning saying
the games are doing that. For some reason.
Well, first off, let's break it down for a second. You're given the text only 13 days left. Then you see the train, and then you get all these people getting off the train, you know, looking somewhat normal, and then you have Lightning very noticeably dressed different in, I don't know what the hell you call that.
It's like Advent Children Cloud wannabe.
This is beyond
costuming.
That. As far as costuming goes, in my mind, she's gone full retard. Because she just threw on whatever. At least Advent Children give it that they had a consistent style. At least Cloud looked like, okay, he pulled from the same closet to wear that outfit, and it had some similarity to what he was wearing in the original game. This is a mishmash, like, alright, I'm going to cover myself in duct tape, I'm going to roll through Walmart, Katamari style, and whatever I come out with, that's my armor, and that's my costume.
Well, then on top of that, too, like, Lightning comes out, and she's wearing this she wishes she were Cloud from Advent Children costume, and nobody else in that town looks like her.
Right.
Like, does nobody think that's weird?
Yeah, because I would.
I don't understand. Like, nobody looks at her twice. And granted, it's just the trailer, okay? That's all it is. It's just the trailer. But all the same, you're not impressing me, Square. You're really not, and again, it just seems so ADHD that they don't know what their story, what this universe is supposed to even be, because it's like 70 different things.
And then we're given
no. So and then, like whoever they got to write it should be fired. Anybody who thought that what they were penning down on their little legal notepad should be fired.
Okay, granted, I agree with you on that. Let's see why you want to fire them about this story now, because apparently we're in this town. What's it called? Luxuria?
Whatever.
Luxurious?
They took it from Organization 13.
Right.
Anyway,
point being, they're in this town, and then they're spouting off all this stuff about people going against God, and they're the outcast or something like that.
In that trailer, I'm not actually seeing any of what they're describing.
No, see, that's the point I was about to bring up. They're talking about all this stuff, but they don't demonstrate any of it. There's no demonstration of whoever's enforcing these so-called rules and laws or whatever. It's just more of the town.
All I see that you might possibly care about is a fight with that Knoll dude from 13-2, and you don't know why that's happening. So
Right.
currently, the only reason for even the fans to really want to play the game is like, oh no, why are these two characters fighting against each other? They shouldn't be fighting against each other, but they are. Now I have to play the game to find out. But,
and then it's like, you know, he's like,
really
you can't be Lightning. Like, you didn't know Lightning? And then we're also given, today we got a picture of this new character, Lumina, who's basically like Vanille and, what's Lightning's sister? Sarah. Vanille and Sarah come together and wore a Misa costume from Death Note, and that's what we got here.
Well, people are saying that Lumina is basically the replacement for Sarah. In fact, she may even be Sarah. I don't really know or care, because I didn't care about any of these characters anyway. So
I'm betting right off the bat she's probably annoying, more than likely.
She's probably a skank. I don't know. I can't comment on her. I really can't. I don't know enough about her.
Well, reading into it, the people responsible for the game say that she will neither be friend or foe. At some point she will help Lightning, and at some point she will stand in her way.
So I don't care about her.
Exactly. So it's like, so you don't even know what she's doing. So you're going to keep it ambiguous.
So, okay, like, I'm reading on Kotaku, right?
Right.
And they went to a press conference sort of thing that just happened, and they only got the chance to ask 2 questions.
They who?
Kotaku.
Okay, alright.
And one guy near the Kotaku guy asked a question that was basically, why just Lightning and why is it only solo? Because, yeah, that's bothersome, that you have this active time battle system, but you only have one party member. That's not a party member, that's solo. And their answer was basically that, oh, it'll be like you're in a party, because you can switch between different classes. That's like a party, right? No, that's not like a party. That's like one person changing clothes in the middle of
that's not
battle.
a party.
That's not a party.
And even socially, if you're one person having a party for yourself, that's considered sad. And you don't want to hang out with that person.
So, I don't know, like, it wants to be Surja Derberus.
Yeah, I guess from the single player.
And it wants to be 10-2, because it wants to be Vincent changing clothes in the dress sphere system.
Uh-huh.
That's what it wants to be. But that sounds awful. Like, the execution had better really friggin' blow me away.
I'm pulling up a picture here of the costume because I really want to make fun of this thing because it's so easy to here. Alright, I can't even tell what we got going on here. We've got a corset. We've got what looks like the remnants of her old costume that she's now wearing as a split skirt. We've got like a Gundam shield on her left-hand side. This kind of, I don't even know what you call it, bondage armor going down her arms, the collar, the cape, and then this sword.
And some Guilty Gear sword.
Yeah, and some Guilty Gear sword. Like, where are you going? Where did you come from? Are you cosplaying? Are you competing in Iron cosplay? That's the feel that I get from this.
It really does look like it was just a bunch of stuff slapped, like whatever was lying around the office.
Right.
We just took it and like maybe that's what happened. Like maybe Tetsuya Nomura was all like, you know what would be a great idea? I'm just gonna start wearing stuff, okay? And I'm just gonna keep putting stuff on until you tell me to stop. All right, and you guys take a picture of me and then I'll draw it.
You know for certain that Nomura designed this.
Well, I'm not so certain because in 13-2. All he designed was faces, and somebody else designed the clothes.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Nomura didn't design this because I don't see one zipper. Or a belt.
You have a point.
So that's my theory right there.
I'm going to find out.
But yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. Lightning returns. Calling it a hot mess would be a compliment. And a degradation to the idea of a hot mess.
Well, more questions that came up at that conference that Kotaku went to. One of the questions dude asked was, people in the past would get attached to their party. That was fun. With it being just one person, you don't have the emotional tie to the characters. Were you worried about that, or were you confident that your mechanics were going to be well traded for the emotional aspect? And their response is basically like, well, you're going to be emotionally attached to Lightning because you're going to take her through some really hard battles, and then you're really going to feel for her in these hard battles. No, I'm not. I'm going to think, well, here's the object that will get me through these battles, and these battles might be hard, and I will feel bad for me because I have to put up with your hard battles. No, that doesn't make sense. That's not going to make me emotionally attached to her as a character. Character development with other characters will make me emotionally attached to her as a character. You didn't make me attached to her in 13. She was barely there in 13 too, so I didn't get attached to her then either. I didn't know what she was doing most of the time she was on the screen. So, no. 2 games. You did this for 2 full-length games, at least like 30 hours apiece. And I still don't care. I don't know what they think they're accomplishing, why they so badly want to drill lightning into the ground.
I don't want to interrupt you, but kind of tying into this, I'm looking here that apparently Square put out a poll for female Final Fantasy character, and look who took number 1, Lightning.
I know. I realized that for some reason, people really like Lightning, and I'm guessing it's because Square Enix has been shoving her down people's throats.
Now, I want to go out on a limb here because this is going to be my opinion, and I don't know if anybody else shares this, but the way they push Lightning makes me feel somewhat the same way about Carly Rae Jepsen and Call Me Maybe. Now, hear me out on this.
What?
I don't think the song is as good or even as popular as it should be, but it's the fact that it's been forced down everybody's throat that it's led to believe, well, it's got to be popular. We're playing it all the time. But just because you're playing something all the time doesn't mean people like it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Kind of like my assumption that you have slapped the title Final Fantasy on this.
Right.
So people are going to buy it no matter what. And people are arguing with me, well, it must be a good game because it sold this many copies. And I'm thinking, that doesn't matter. You're stupid. Final Fantasy is a well-renowned series as it is. People were going to buy this title regardless of whether it was amazing or it blew chunks. Here's what I find funny. This listing here, it's got this character Beatrix way down at number 14 tied with Yuffie.
Uh-huh.
Beatrix is so similar to Lightning.
Uh-huh.
She's from, as you can see, she's from Final Fantasy IX. She's a very strong female character. She's a lead of, I'm trying to remember exactly the name of the guard force. They're a bunch of knights for Alexandria, the main country within the game. And she's very strong and has a very cool head about her and doesn't take any nonsense. She carries a big old sword. She's basically exactly like Lightning. But she's way down here. Now, granted, she's not a main character, but they're like the same character. And so that's why I'm positive that it's because Lightning is so prominent that she's pushed all the way up here to the top, and here's Beatrix way down here at number 14.
Uh-huh.
I am positive that that's it.
Well, can't say for certain, but it's definitely got something to do with the amount of press that they're giving her in specific. That you would agree on that.
Yeah. The main art designer, the character designer is still Tetsuya Nomura. I don't actually know whether or not he drew the clothes, though. Tetsuya Nomura. No, he might have actually done the clothes. This line here in the wiki article says, it has also been revealed by character designer Tetsuya Nomura that Snow will be in the game with a new outfit, though nothing more is known at this time. So that kind of sort of partially sounds like he's the one working on the outfit. I'm not really sure, though. I can hardly believe that this is what Square Enix wants people to think is good and popular. Like, this is really what you're coming out with? Like, you're reusing a lot of character models, kind of like you did with 10-2, and you're using the same engine, so it wasn't exactly hard. Like, you've got all this stuff just lying around, and now you just need to use it. And, like, this is embarrassing. I can't even... Like, you should be working on something new, not trying to fix the things you broke. Just move on with your lives and come up with something new. You got other things that people were waiting for, like Versus 13, people have been waiting for 7 years.
And there was that Agito one, too, right?
Which turned into something else and also dropped off the radar. And then what about, like, you were releasing a Final Fantasy game every couple of years... And you've been sitting here trying to fix your broken 13 and 14, and what about 15? There's been, like, no blip on the radar for 15, yet you give us this tech demo that is absolutely gorgeous and actually looks like fantasy.
I would have pre-ordered that had that been an actual game.
Well, we know that's not going to be an actual game,
which is sad.
Because
it's really,
Square
really
Enix
sad.
has a history of just releasing tech demos that mean absolutely nothing.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, what are you doing with that technology? You're sitting on it and you're doing absolutely nothing.
So then, effectively, you could call the extra 2 13s the longest, worst apology for a bad relationship ever.
Yeah, because basically what they're doing is saying, oh, we're going to be better next time, and then they go and they make the same mistake again, and you, like a beaten housewife, keep going back to them going, oh, he says he's going to change. No, dumb broad, he's never going to change. You're going to get beaten again. And everyone will see that black eye, and they will know, oh, you went back to him, didn't you? And you're going to be like, yeah, but it's going to be different the next time. No, there's not going to be a different next time. It's the same next time every time. No.
The lesson from housewives or even husbands in abusive relationships, just get out of the relationship. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and change over to a topic that I'm a little bit more familiar with. Yesterday, it was announced that Bandai Namco Games will be putting out Kamen Rider Battride War, or Battle Ride War, depending on how you pronounce it. It's a Musou-style game for the PlayStation 3, their first, for the franchise, venture into the PS3 market. A trailer has been put out. There's a little bit known that the bikes will have a very important role in the gameplay. Many of the original actors are coming back to reprise their roles for this. I'm excited. Kaylin, you're a little bit iffy on this.
The only reason why I'm iffy is because I feel like a Musou game or a Dynasty Warriors style game really needs to be done by Koei.
Yes.
And it's not, because Toei, not Koei.
Right. Toei, who owns the property Kamen Rider.
Toei has this attachment at the hip with Bandai, and Bandai makes all their games.
And their toys.
And their toys, and pretty much their all of their external products that can be purchased are pretty much all Bandai property. But, and it's not to say that their games are bad. They're not. They're just all, like, really simple and really childish.
No, I admit to that. Like, I've played through just about every modern game that they've had, all the Climax Heroes, Rider Generations, and this, I'll admit right off the bat, this has my money. Like, just because I'm that big of a fan, and because it doesn't look like it's gonna suck that bad. I compared it, footage-wise, to the Saint Seiya game that Bandai Namco put out not too long ago, and it doesn't look that bad. Admittedly, I would want the AI in the game to be a little bit more aggressive, that way I actually feel like I'm actually fighting, because admittedly, most recently in All Rider Generation 2, I enjoyed the amount of players that were available to me, the different riders and secondary riders. However, after a while, it's kind of hard not to ignore that it's getting easier and easier to mow down the different thugs. I admit I enjoy that, again, the variety, but I want to feel like I'm actually playing this thing and not just being spoon-fed something.
Well, see, here's the rest of why I'm concerned about this game. And it's not that it looks like it's bad. It just looks like it's not going to be as good as what I would expect out of the rest of the genre. Comparing it to that Saint Seiya footage, or what have we called it over here? Knights of the Zodiac, if you're more familiar with that.
Right.
It just looks slow in comparison to a lot of Dynasty Warriors. Like, it's not completely retarded slow, but it does look slower than Dynasty Warriors. Also, considerably, the graphics for this Kamen Rider game specifically look maybe slightly less good than, say, a Dynasty Warriors counterpart.
I'll say as much as that trailer is about on par with the trailers that they put out for their Data Card-ass game that they play over there. The name escapes me. Ganba Ride. It's about the same quality as a Ganba Ride trailer, which doesn't make me feel that great because Ganba Ride is incredibly easy and designed for kids.
Well, on top of that, it's a completely different style game. All they did was render some footage, and then you take this e-reader and slide a card through it, and it's not the same game style at all. In fact, that trailer showed you absolutely, well, not absolutely.
Not absolutely. There's a little bit at the end.
There's a little bit of in-game footage, but man, they sure took their time showing it to you, and what little they did, it was like, I'm not seeing a lot of fight happen.
Well, see, because the thing that I noticed about it, and again, this adding to your point of simplicity, is that you saw the writers individually attacking some of the villains, and I barely saw one or two take a swipe at them.
Yeah.
Which makes me hope that, they'll increase the difficulty on these things. Because even the oldest Dynasty Warrior game that I've played on the PS2, that's still friggin' difficult. Even to this day.
Mm.
So I would expect at least that level of difficulty that a game had, 8 years ago, something like that?
At the very least, 8 years ago. I think I got that game in, 2003?
Oh, no, so going on 10 years then.
Yeah, so I was in high school when I got that game.
So at least 10 years ago, that much difficulty in a Muso-style game, I expect at least that much out of this game. Now, granted, again, that was Koei, this is Bandai Namco. But at the same time, I would like something that not only has playability, but I can, bring people over and be like, hey, this is pretty awesome, and have them agree. Admittedly, they've tried before to have a game somewhat in a Muso style for Gokaiger. And that was ridiculously simple, because half the time you just kind of glided over to the next set of villains, mowed them down, lather, rinse, repeat for 30 levels, and you didn't really get anywhere. And I think you would agree with that, especially, referring back to 13. I would like to have a game with my footage.
Yeah.
I don't want to just... I don't want you to lie to me that I'm going to play a game and I'm just watching footage. Granted, I like cutscenes, and granted, a lot of what writer games have been up to this point is relying on the cutscenes, which is what I'm hoping they'll do differently here, is that they'll rely more on the actual gameplay and not the cutscenes.
I'm struggling so hard to think that it will have any sort of difficulty at all whatsoever, because here we were playing the PSP fight game, the Climax Heroes.
Climax Heroes, which Fose specifically.
Unlocking everything was incredibly simple. Incredibly simple. I've never unlocked everything in a fighting game before in my life on my own, and I was able to do it there. What game did you just get at MagFest?
Rider Generation 2.
Well, you handed over the first one to me, the Game Boy Advance one. Or not Game Boy Advance, the DS one.
The DS one,
You handed the DS one over to me at the final boss, and me never having played the game before, I beat the final boss for you. And just, I don't...
Now, admittedly, I had beat the final boss before, but this was... having not played it before, just handing it over to you, you picked it. Now, admittedly, the difference... That was a side-scrolling beat-em-up, not necessarily... Well, I guess there is a similarity between that and Muso.
Look, these two different games that I already did play both of which were Kamen Rider games.
Right.
Both of them were insanely easy. And this is just a different genre, just like these other two games were completely different genres. Fighting game, side-scrolling beat-em-up,
and now we have Muso to add to that.
Wide open-world brawler.
Right.
And I just don't think, not that it's going to be bad, like, they'll all look good. I think they're all good-looking games. They're perfectly decent-looking games. And their gameplay is very functional, and it works, and it's not bad gameplay. It's just like somebody took the difficulty and then kind of turned the knob down a little bit.
Right.
To the point where anybody could beat it. And, like, let's face it, it's a children's television show. It's meant for, like, 5-year-olds. Like, 5 to... We're pushing 10. Pushing 10.
Now, the thing that I wonder about here, specifically referring to the Rider Generation games, is that as much as they are designed for children, sticking certain characters in there that a child in about that age range generally has no idea who they are and might have seen once or twice in one of the recent
How do you think
team-up
they're
movies.
going to get their parents to buy the game for them? They have to make the parents
Right, which means that they have to. There is something in there for an older audience, which is why I'm hoping that they stick to what the rumor is here, that the older Showa riders, Kamen Rider 1 through Kamen Rider J, are DLC, and I would be fine with that.
Well, look,
as long as that opportunity is there.
No, listen, if it's a family game, it's still not going to be difficult. You saw me, like, yesterday, replaying through this point-and-click adventure by Sierra called Torrens Passage.
Yes, you were playing
that. Was one of Sierra's very few, in fact, I can't think of another one off the top of my head, maybe somebody else can. I can't think of another family sort of oriented game that Sierra ever made, and they're well known for having done all these massive, really difficult, you could get screwed over if you do something wrong and can't complete your game, point-and-click adventures. But you can finish Torrens Passage in a matter of just a couple of hours.
Right.
And that's because the developers wanted to create a game, Al Lowe specifically, the guy who really was the head of the operation, wanted to create a game that he and his children could play together. And so it had content in there that was nice for the adults to look at and listen to, you know, jokes that would go over the kids' heads to keep the adults entertained, but gameplay that the kids could play to make it through, to make them not feel stupid and get them stuck and have their game ruined, which is why, like, when you died, you didn't really die, you just started right back at that same spot. That's why I think, like, you're kidding yourself if you think that older generation riders are in there and will mean more difficult gameplay. No, that means the adults that have been growing up with this stuff for their entire lives now get to share it with their children and play this simple game with their children. It's a family game, and they get to play it together, and nobody's feelings get hurt if the game is too hard.
Admittedly, I guess that's still me holding out against hope that they would do something that was a little bit more, I want to use the term respectable, but I guess at the very least, the best I could hope for is the inclusion of the character, not necessarily a more difficult gameplay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And that pretty much covers that, and moving on to, because you bring up family friendly, the third biggest thing, just a few days ago, Disney announced Disney Universe, or Disney Infinity, available on all platforms this summer, and pretty much this thing screams Spyro. That new, what's it specifically called, the Spyro game? Well, yeah, you don't know.
I don't care about it. I don't want to play it.
Now, that's the thing, though. I've seen a lot of people actually get pretty hyped for this thing, and I don't seem to see where that comes from personally. Like, don't get me wrong. I love Disney. I love Pixar. I'm happy with everything that they've done, but this very much more so than the other two, to me, screams money grubber.
Meh, I don't really know why we're talking about it.
Well, it's a gaming thing. A lot of people are, interested.
Well, I kind of just thought we were just talking about our two things that we actually knew anything
about
right now, because this is just kind of a test run.
Well, yeah, but this is still something.
Yeah, and I don't know anything about it other than it's got some figures that I put on a platform,
right.
and then they get in that game and they do a thing, and then you gotta collect the thing.
Now,
it's gonna be really expensive. Like it's.
Do you see this working? Is basically my question.
Yeah, I do because it's Disney.
In what age range though? Is it
young?
Again?
Yeah, like what adults do you know that are playing that Spyro game or whatever?
None.
Yeah, exactly, and you've seen some commercials for it, perhaps.
For the Spyro one, yes, I have.
Children are playing that game. Children will be playing this game. Look how cute Captain Jack Sparrow is. Look at how cute he is. Yeah. Do you really? Wait, what's that ball he's holding?
That's a Toy
Story ball.
Because now the whole thing of this is basically to a certain extent, I think this is as close to Kingdom Hearts 3 as we're gonna get right now. The ability to cross between Disney characters and Pixar characters.
Like these are all freaking chibi Disney characters is what this is. And you're
only so chibi. I mean,
well, even
Wreck-It Ralph looks the same.
All the Pixar characters, even considering that they're all CG, they all look smaller and squattier and cartoonier, even considering they're all cartoons anyway. Look at that. They're all adorable. Look at Woody's adorable face. Look at Buzz's adorable chin hair.
Yeah, but look, okay, by that same token, can Barbossa be adorable?
He's an adorable Barbossa. That is the cutest I have ever seen Barbossa.
I didn't even know you could do that. But apparently Pixar has the technology. But
and
then again, we're dealing with giraffe money. Specifically, Disney has what I call giraffe money, which is basically that whole thing of you can walk to the zoo, point in a giraffe, and say, wrap it up. And they'll be like, what? You can't afford this giraffe. It's not for sale. And then you flash X amount of money, hence giraffe money, and they'll be like, okay, where do you want it delivered? And that's what is producing this game.
Because, like, I'm not going to play it unless it just falls into my lap. Because to me, it's like trying to keep up with Warhammer 40k. You want to build...
Admittedly, I see the resemblance.
You want to build this army, right? And this army, it's like... Oh, well, you gotta spend all this money on an army. Oh, you want it to be a good army? Well, you gotta lay down some more money. Oh, by the way, the figures don't come pre-painted. You gotta do that yourselves, and you gotta buy your own paint to do it. And now, granted, you don't have to buy your own paint for these figures.
Yeah, but admittedly, there's 40... From the start, they're gonna release 40 pieces, not necessarily all of one, but the character figures, the base itself, and these power disc things that apparently add attributes to the characters themselves.
Oh my god. No, I'm not that kind of a collector. I will collect cards because cards are cheap and I get a bunch of them. So,
speaking as a collector, how much do you see this running the average person to try and play this?
Well, how much do those little Spyro figures go for? That'll tell you.
I want to say like 15, something like that.
For a pack of how many?
Like I think it's like 2 or 3, yeah.
Try collecting all 40, because the initial game comes with the first 3, right?
Well, yeah, the 17 character figures at the beginning. So 17 times 3, not counting what comes with the game, if any come with the game. So you're looking at, like, what? Say 3 comes with a starter, you're still looking at, what? 3, 6, 9, 12... Like, at least 5 times 15, math, like $75, give or take, for this... For the figures alone, not counting these power disc things that you would have to buy to add on attributes to these characters.
Yeah, like you're gonna have to be a rich kid. You're going to have parents who love you very, very much, and if your parents don't love you, you're not getting this game.
Which makes me wonder too, because they're planning on releasing this thing very shortly. I believe they said in May or June, like that.
Is it online?
No, it's cross-platform.
No, cross-platform. Do you know what cross-platform means?
Oh, well, not cross. I'm sorry, for all platforms. Sorry, bad phrasing there. My thing is this
platforms does not mean that it's online.
Right. Let me double check real quick. But basically, what I'm getting at is...
If you can't play this with other people, then I don't want it. I absolutely don't want it and don't care.
Trying to double check right now.
Well, what are you saying anyway?
Basically, I think this is a weird decision to release this in the summer. I mean, I get kids are out of school, but because of how figure-oriented this is, I don't see why they wouldn't have released this closer to next Christmas. Because, that's when the toy push
ready now.
I guess.
Well, they'll probably release a whole new set of toys for Christmas.
No, yeah, that probably makes more sense, too. That way it's out there, and then there's more of a demand then. But I guess that more or less covers it. That's all I got to talk about. I don't know about you, if you wanted to talk about anything else or reiterate.
I really didn't want to talk about that, even.
But then again, there's a lot of stuff we don't want to talk about. That'll cover it. Okay.
I'm done.